This video is a demo of group-based configuration of Wyse Linux thin clients with Dell Wyse Device Manager 5.0. Today the components that we're using and the versions are Dell Wyse Device Manager 5.0. We're using an enterprise version feature called DDC or Default Device Configuration. We're using Dell Wyse Suse Linux Embedded Thin Clients, and it is model 5250-D50D. And I might note that WDM is running on server 2012 R2. The configuration criteria for today's demo are to set up device-based group views for WDM, enable default device configuration, otherwise known as DDC, to automatically apply device configurations to device based on group membership. In this specific example, what I'm going to do is use a couple of different internet URLs and create default Firefox device configurations with those URLs. So I'm going to switch over here to my WDM server. Let's go ahead and launch the Wyse Device Manager console. We'll expand the Wyse Device Manager menu. And then let's expand the device manager view then. And we see right now we're just looking at a default view, all the devices that have checked into Wyse Device Manager. You can see that we're looking at a Suse Linux device that's online, platforms D50D. And the first thing we're going to do is set up a group type. So let's right click, create a new group type. We'll give it a name. Let's just call it groups by Firefox connection URL. And I'm just going to copy the same name to the description for this demonstration. We'll go ahead and save that. And then we're going to go associate a view with this group type. So let's click on views. Again, right click. Let's do a new view. We'll give this a name. Let's just put connection URL. And then over on the right side, we need to add the group type to this view. Go ahead and click OK. And then let's go back to group types for a second. We can actually define our groups from here, so we'll just go ahead and define a couple. For today's demo, I'm going to basically use two different URLs. I'm going to use msn.com and google.com. So let's just define groups that match those to make it easy to follow. Go ahead and click OK, and then we'll go back to Device Manager. You see we're on the default view, so we'll right click and go to Switch View. From the drop-down menu, you'll see connection URL is now there. Click OK. And you'll see our predefined groups there as well as an unassigned group. Anything that has not been configured already or moved to another group is going to show up in the unassigned group. And in order to move it to another group, you're just going to drag and drop it into that group. But first, let's what we need to do is basically add our packages that define the configuration for these groups. And I've created a couple already, so let's go look at those on my C directory. You'll see I've got two Rapport WDM packages called MSN and Google. And the way this works is there's basically a script file, which is nothing more than a text file, and then a folder containing the files and such associated with that script. So I've got one called MSN and one called Google. If we drill down into the MSN one, you can see that basically what we have is a WLX INI file, just like you would use for a file server configuration with FTP or HTTP. Basically what we're doing is we're just defining it within WDM and using WDM to point the device to that INI configuration file at the point that the device checks in. So this is my sample configuration file, just showing you that we've got a Firefox session configured, pointed to the MSN URL, MSN as the description. And we'll look at the Google one as well. If I scroll down, I see the Google configuration and the Google URL. So the next thing we need to do, since those packages are already created, in my case, we're just going to go back to WDM. And we're going to go to the package manager and import both of those packages. So let's right click on package manager. We're going to do new package. We're going to register a package based on RSP, and we're going to browse to those packages. Just take the defaults the rest of the way. Click Finish. And go ahead and import the other one as well. So now I should have both of my packages imported into WDM. We'll click on Other Packages, which is where I've defined for them to be placed. You see the MSN and Google packages are present. We're going to look at the package script real quick. I'll just show you. The number is basically the description of the package. I should say the package name. The description is Google Suse in my case, which in WDM that's imported into the description field. OS defines it as a Linux package. Category, other packages, which defines that folder. And then you can see in the script, it's basically just copying over the data in the folder over to the device registry root. Pretty straightforward. Go ahead and close out of that. And the next thing we need to do is actually configure DDC within WDM. It is turned off by default, so we'll do that by going to Preferences. We'll choose Device Manager Preferences. And then the submenu under Device Manager's DDC. Let's go ahead and check to enable the default device configuration. We're going to leave it at basically apply it upon check-in. There's some instances where you may want to do it based on time, maybe in the middle of the night, but for today we're going to do upon check-in. So we've saved that, and now we actually need to define our DDC. You can see I've created one for another OS type, but we're going to actually create one for the Suse OS. So let's change our view to our connection URL view. And then we're basically going to define a different package for each group there. So first thing is operating system, Suse Linux, media size 4000. That's the flash media size within the device. Qualifying OS image, we're not applying an image, so we're just going to choose no image at this point, because what we're doing is applying a software package. So on the next tab over, you see the software packages. We're going to go ahead and check Google. We're going to add it. And then we're going to go over and apply the same settings to the MSN package, or the relative settings. Again, operating system, media size, no image, software package. This time will be MSN. We can add and then finish. Basically, this error is just telling me that it hasn't been synchronized to any remote repositories at this point. That's fine for my lab, as I've only got one master repository. In a production environment, you would want to synchronize repositories before you actually try to deploy this. And let's look at the device real quick. We'll log in as administrator here and basically show you that it's a default configuration on the device. So first thing, I'll just show you the build version that we're actually running at this point. It's Suse Embedded Linux version 11, Service Pack 2, and it's Wyse Build 62. So let's look at the INI settings under the control panel, and we see that it is told to point to a folder to get its configuration, but I basically have no configuration file out there. It's just getting that from the DHCP scope options. So what I can do, I'll show you, we'll open Xterm here and we'll browse out to the folder where the INI file would normally be downloaded and saved. So we'll just change directory up a couple times here. And let's change to our etc Wyse root WLX folder. There's the WLX folder. And then if there was actually a configuration file in there, it would be named WNOS INI. You'll see there is actually no configuration file, so it is a default device. And I haven't made any changes to it locally. In fact, I set it to factory default immediately prior to this. So now what we'll do is we'll go back over to the WDM server and let's drag the device into the Google group first. So now we've got our device in the Google group. It should be ready to push that configuration file to it, or rather for the device to pull it. So let's shut down and reboot it just to speed the process up. Basically, it's going to happen automatically anytime the device checks in as we defined. So in order to speed up that check-in, an easy way to do that is just to reboot the device. You could also request from the WDM server that the device initiates a full check-in as well. So upon reboot of the device, it's going to take a few seconds for it to actually download the configuration file. You'll see it did download it there and reboot, which was part of the package script. And then when it comes back up, it'll take a few more seconds to actually apply those settings as far as the INI file. And then we'll see that the Firefox connection that we created in the URL should be there. So we've booted back up. It grabbed the INI settings previously, and part of the INI setting was to auto log in. As you just saw there, it did do that, and we now have the Google icon on the desktop. I'm going to go ahead and launch that. We'll just verify that it's going to the google.com URL as expected. And it is indeed going to Google as the homepage. So now we can go back over to the WDM server, and what we want to do is switch that to a different group where we're going to define a different URL. In this case, it's going to be the MSN URL. Now, anytime you change configurations on a device, I think it's a best practice to just go ahead and reset the OS settings. That way you know you don't have any lingering settings from a previous configuration. So I just went ahead and pushed the reset OS setting package to it. We'll switch back over to the device here, and we see that it is indeed already rebooting from that package. So again, we'll go through a few more reboot cycles. We're back to factory default with no login there. We'll get a few seconds for the DDC package to apply and reboot the device. And be patient when you're doing this, as I've cut a lot of time out of here by editing the video, but it can take a few seconds or up to a minute or so sometimes for it to actually download some of those changes. One more reboot there as it applies the INI settings. And this time we're going to auto log in again. And now we see that it's pulled the configuration from the MSN group. And if we launch the Firefox connection, we should be going to the MSN page. So we are indeed pointed at the MSN page. And that's the extent of what I wanted to demo to you today. Thanks for watching.